Hi guys, this is Agota from Rose Gold and I would like to show you some different ways how to decorate your own roll-on bottles. Are you ready? Let's do this! Today I'm gonna show you how to use an acrylic primer and a homemade chalk paint primer on your bottle. Okay, so first thing first, why we need primer? The glass needs primer, otherwise the paint you use won't stick to the glass at all. Ordinary paint won't stick to the glass. It might dry on the glass surface, but because the glass doesn't absorb paint, the paint won't stick. Even simple everyday occurrences like handling, humidity, exposure to UV light and contact can damage regular paint on glass. That's why we need primer on the glass. I will show you two methods. One is the homemade chalk paint and the other is with acrylic primer, which can be bought in any hobby shop. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, first I'm gonna show you how to make a homemade chalk paint. So for this you will need some plaster of Paris and latex paint. You can choose any color of paint. For primer I would go for eggshell or cashmere. Whatever you choose, the most important thing is that your paint is latex. Let's go for the cashmere color. You will need some small measuring cups. We only need to make a small batch of chalk paint. For roller bottles you don't need much paint. I already measured out my ingredients: 1/3 cup of water, 1/3 cup of plaster of Paris and a cup of paint. You need a jar to mix all the ingredients in. Make sure the jar has a top, you can screw it so the leftover paint won't dry out. First I pour the water in the jar. Then I grab my mesh strainer and pour the plaster of Paris in. It's a little trick to make sure your chalk paint won't be clumpy. I tried to make this a few different ways and using a strainer gave the best results. I sieved the plaster through the mesh strainer. In my experience, the chalk paint recipe made using plaster of Paris does not store well, so it's best to make it fresh. Wait until all the plaster has sunk in the water and then mix them together. Okay, now pour the cup of paint in the mixture. And then mix it well. It should look like this, smooth and creamy. I'm gonna paint a few bottles. So first I put hooks in them, so it will be easier to hang it on to dry. If you don't have any hooks, check out my arts and crafts supplies video for roller bottle art. It has some tips on how to make your own hooks. You can find the link in the description. So To prepare the bottles for the primer, it is important to clean the surface with alcohol to remove any grease and dust. I use a thin flat brush to put a coat of paint on the bottles. It has to be a thin coat because you're gonna put other colors on it later on, so you don't want to have a thick paint on the bottle. Now the first bottle is done, let's hang it on the drying rack and paint the rest of them, and then let's wait until they dry. If you don't want to make your own primer, you can also use acrylic primer, which can be bought in any hobby shop. Okay, let's check that out. So I put my hooks in the bottles. Then clean them with alcohol. Okay, so let's grab our acrylic primer. I will cover the bottles using two different methods. One is with a sponge paintbrush. You can use any kind of sponge, but make sure it has small pores. Can you see that? Okay. The other method is with a thin flat brush. Using this method is more time consuming but will give a smoother finish. So first dip the sponge brush in the acrylic primer and dab the bottle. Sponges provide a textured finish over the glass surface, so make sure you put a thin layer on the bottle. Okay, it's done. Let's see how it looks. You can see the texture, but for primer it's okay. You still want to use brushes for achieving complete coverage with other colors. Okay, I'm hanging this on the dry rack. Now let's use the brush. Any type of paintbrush may be used. While synthetic bristled brushes leave visible strokes, natural bristled brushes give you smooth, even coverage. Okay, I put a thin layer on them, and now let's wait until they dry. Now I am back at the chalk paint bottles. They are dry. This looks nice, but I still can see some transparency. I want this fully covered with the chalk paint, so I put another coat on it. I will leave these bottles with one layer on them. I will use them for a project where I put another color paint. The acrylic primer dried on the bottles too. You can see, and actually I can feel the texture on this one. This is the one I coated using the sponge. And this one is nice and smooth. This is the one I coated using the brush. See the difference? The brush gives a frosted look. Okay, let's compare this one to the chalk paint bottle. You can see the bottle with chalk paint is more covered. It's thicker. For base coat, you can use any of these techniques. As I said, the purpose of the primer is to get the other paint stick on the glass. For acrylic primer, you should use only one coat. Then you can use any color of acrylic paint. This has also one layer. Okay, let's see the difference with color paint. I'm gonna go for orange color. One layer of orange on the bottle that I coated with primer using the brush. Okay, it's done. It looks nice. Okay, let's do the chalk painted one, which is this one. Okay, I'm gonna put this one on the drying rack. So one layer of orange. Okay, this looks also good. Actually, you cannot see the difference. The base coat for one is chalk paint, the other one is acrylic primer. Now let's paint the one I did with the sponge. It still has the texture. Wait a minute. So can you see? You can see the texture on it. Okay, now they are dried. As you can see, this one has texture. I can feel it. This was coated with acrylic paint using sponge. Okay, these guys were coated using brush. This one was painted with acrylic primer. It's nice and smooth. And this one is with homemade chalk paint base. It looks also nice and smooth. Brushes with natural bristles provide a smoother and more even finish, which is great for applying base coat. If you are not happy with your homemade chalk paint base coat, I have good news. You can easily remove the coat with some water. You have to put the bottles in a cup or a bowl and pour water on them. Leave it soaking for a day. And then just scrub the paint off. Unfortunately, you cannot use this method with the acrylic primer I used because it leaves a water-resistant surface after drying. Okay, it's clean. I recommend to use scrubbing sponge to get this done faster. If you enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell. Also check out my Etsy shop, you can find there these bottles and more. Send us a picture if you create one of these, we love seeing your creativity. If you use Instagram, please use the hashtag rosegoilddiy and it will show up on our page. Thanks for watching, happy crafting!